To ask someone, when is Tisha B'Av, would be like asking someone for the correct number to dial 911, or who's buried in Kever Rachel, or what color is the White House. They're all self-explanatory, self-evident, they're obvious. Tu B'Shvat named very cleverly for the date that we celebrate Tu B'Shvat on, the 15th day of Shvat, a minor holiday for the Jewish people. Some actually refer to this day as Chamisha Asar B'Shvat. But the name of the holiday, while it does tell us when we celebrate it, the name doesn't speak to its significance or what our service should be on the 15th day of Shvat. It's also rather perplexing and pressing that we discover what is the significance of Tu B'Shvat. Why are we excited? Because after all, it's such a serious and energized holiday that we omit Tachanun. The same Tachanun that kept Amoraim alive, the same Tachanun that shows our total subservience and subjugation to Hashem is skipped because of the significance of Tu B'Shvat. A holiday, a moed of sorts. It's actually a rather frightening day as well. A lot hangs in the balance. A minor Yom Kippur, yeah. Because the Bnei Yissaschar, he tells us in his Maimer on the month of Shvat, citing a reference to the Mishnah in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Beis Amud Aleph, that Tu B'Shvat is the new year for tree. Rosh Hashanah Le'ilon is the literal text of the Mishnah. It is singular, not Le'ilanot, but Le'ilon. Even if the song is sung with different words, the Mishnah is in singular, just one tree. It's a remez, a reference to the tree that will be used in the coming year for Kedusha, the Elon, that is the Esrog Elon. And today is the day that we daven to have a mehudar, a beautiful, symmetrical, dazzling citron and esrog. You daven for it today. It's very scary. You don't want to be the fellow on the side of the shul that's stuck with an esrog that looks like it's a cheap suitcase that's been handled by some aggressive TSA agents that by the time you arrive at your destination, your suitcase comes down that baggage claim mechanism that brings the suitcases out, and all you see is a big, bumpy, beat-up, cheap, barely recognizable suitcase. You don't want that esrog to be your esrog of choice. And that all hangs in the balance today. And if you're a Kabbalist, you like the mysticism, well, it's a unique day for the Arizal. Would have the custom to set the table and make a quasi-Pesach Seder, Tu B'Shvat Seder with the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, letting out the sparks and the hidden jewels of Kedusha that have been trapped inside of these fruits, going after the nitzotzes. So if you have the Masorah of the Lurianic Kabbalah that you like to practice, there's even more on the line. If you're a Kalta Litvak like me, when you like your Yiddishkeit to be cold and dark, well, it is even doubly as scary, because Tu B'Shvat brings all these bracha questions. Do you make a shehechiyanu on these fruits? All new, odd fruits that you haven't eaten in quite some time. Suffix brachos all over the place. Don't even mention the toloim, the insects that are crawling in the fruit. Do they have to be checked? How many isurei d'oraisa are there if, God forbid, one does have one? What to do with the chocolate-covered apricot and the jelly-dipped kiwi? Are we allowed to consume Should we? How do we consume these $75 fruit platters? It's a serious day, a weighty day, and a great opportunity. So let's explore. Let's figure out what we can take out of this day, what our avoda is, hopefully unearth the depths, plumb the gold mine of Tu B'Shvat, and maybe we will be zocha to bring home a goodie bag full of Yiras Shamayim and something practical to do. So let's start at the very beginning. Where's the source for Tu B'Shvat? Where does all this come from? Need the text. But that's a very easy question to answer. It's an open Mishnah at the beginning of Masechta Rosh Hashanah, don't you know? Beis Amar Aleph Arba Rosh Hashanah Haim. There are 4 new years on the calendar. The Mishnah finishes off. Be'echad B'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Le'ilon. The first day of Shvat, not today, was the Rosh Hashanah for tree. That is Kedivrei Beis Shammai. That is how the Academy of Shammai learned. And Beis Hillel Omrim Bechamisha Asar Bo. No. In fact, the Rosh Hashanah Le'ilon is on the 15th. And the Gemara explaining the root of the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, it does so on Daf Yud Daled, going back and forth about what changes on the first day of the month, the 15th day of the month. Is it the end of the rainy season, the beginning of a new season? Does it still rain? Are there cold days to come, rainy days to come, monsoons to come? A fascinating Gemara. But the bridge that connects trees to people never seems to be crossed. Seems like the trees should be celebrating. It's their bar mitzvah. It's their special day. What does it have to do with people? Why do we eat $75 kiwi apricot platters? So maybe we aren't outlandish to draw the parallel that people are very similar to trees. And celebrations and lessons can be had and should be learned from trees. For after all, the Torah notes of this similarity between trees and people very frequently. The Torah talks about the importance of trees in Mishnayos, in Psukim, in Gemaras. Even if you start at the very beginning of Tanakh, you'll find that the tree of knowledge plays a significant role. Trees obviously have something deeply rooted, pun intended, in Chachmas Hashem. The Parsha Shoftim tells us that literally, Adam eitz hasada. The pasuk says that man is a tree of the field. How about the Mishnah in Avos that says that you should be like a tree with a lot of roots, so that even when a ruach she'ena mitzuya, a very intense hurricane, tornado-like wind comes, that you're rooted, entrenched in the ground with your fear of heaven, that even the Haskalah movement or technology cannot uproot your fear of heaven, because you got to have deep roots like a tree. So maybe we are kind of like trees. Really, the Torah comes to mind as even compared to a tree. For Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba is a tree of life. And there are a plethora of parables, similarities, examples, and lessons that are taught about our spiritual climb to greatness, to growth, to that of a tree. But there must be something unique about the 15th of Tu B'Shvat that we get all excited about. Yeah, there is. Tu B'Shvat, something happens to trees. Something that we feel the need to commemorate and celebrate. And I heard this from the great Rabbi Kalish, the angel, the Malach himself, and pointing out, making a beautiful diak in one of the Rashis, when Rashi's explaining the machlokas of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, about when Tu B'Shvat actually is, that what happens at this time is the tree finishes soaking up its nutrients from the ground. But during all the past couple months, the tree has spent its waking hours soaking up the sap from the ground, building itself up. But on this day, the tree's all grown up. It's his bar mitzvah. And Rashi, explaining the Gemara a little bit later, gives over the halachic, explaining the halachic nafkaminas about why we have to know this date for laws of tithes and neter ravai and different halachic reasons. But what happens on this day, hashkafically, is that the tree is no longer samuch al shulchan shel ground. The tree is no longer supported. It's a self-sustaining organism. It's all grown up. The maturation phase has concluded. It has reborn, taken its first steps, and now will walk by itself and even get a job by itself as a new California redwood that doesn't need any help from anyone else. On this day, a powerful lesson is that human beings commemorate this new beginning for trees, this Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan, for it's something that in our lives we should incorporate. For we really are dependent upon people, the nutrients that life provides. We are dependent on our parents when we're young. Some of us still dependent upon our parents when we're older. We are dependent upon our rabbeim and our chavrusas for spiritual encouragement and Torah teaching. We are dependent upon our spouse. We are dependent upon others. We are dependent on so much to get the mitzvos and Torah done. But the Alter of Kelm says over very poignantly that the more of a necessity something is to life, to existence, the more readily accessible it is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it easy for us to access water because it is a tremendous necessity for life. Bread, easy to get. Air would be impossible to live without, so it's everywhere. It's a spectrum. And when you go the other way, the more of a non-entity, non-important luxury that the item is, more rare. It's because vice tois, it must be, it's not all that important and crucial to human survival. But really, a human being, him by himself, with nothing else but a brain in his head, could survive. Hashem gave him everything. You can take shelter in trees. And if it wasn't for other aspects of honor, maybe we would live in a cardboard box in some basic shelter and food and water. But Vayavasar Yaakov Levado and Vayelech Avraham are avos. Biruchim points out they were able to become their own hotels, 5-star hotels of Torah and Kedusha, self-inspiring organisms, self-sufficient, re-energizing Ruchnius factories. Their own soul Torah proprietorship. They could learn and they could grow on their lonesome. And Rabbi Kalish, he told his Bachrim this beautiful lesson that there is a time that a person needs to become self-inspired. He needs to be able to recreate his Rebbe's enthusiasm with his own mind. And this is the lesson of the trees, that they no longer need the help of the ground, but they grow into tall, towering California redwoods by themselves. In our lives, we probably, hopefully, will have help from others. Help from Art Scroll, help from online shiurim, help from our parents, help from our rabbeim, help from the daily motivational Torah platform, the Motivation Congregation. Like, subscribe, donate, rate, review. But im ein ani li mili, says Rabbeinu Yonah. It means if you are not for yourself, who will be for you? Because if you don't learn to be like a tree and become a self-inspiring human organism, well, then it's not going to work out. You know, these getaways Rabbi Kalish spoke about, these beautiful, inspiring Shabbos projects, the Torah Umasora principled Shabbatons, the question-answer sessions with the Gedolim, the Hanukkah Ruchnius conferences, the Halacha summits. They're all so inspiring, so reinvigorating. But what to do, because they only happen every so months. We need one every week. But other Meitz Hasada, like on Tu B'Shvat, there comes a time when a man can learn that his own Friday night Suda, him and his spouse and his children, they can recreate the Shabbos project, the Torah Umasora convention around the table with the Shabbos candles off to the side. He can have his own question-answer session with his family. He can have his own inspiring talk with his Shnayim Mikra Sefer and his own motivational drasha from his Mishnayos. That's what it means to grow up, to grow into a large, towering California redwood on the day of Tu B'Shvat. It's Tree Independence Day. It's a quasi-moed. We leave our parents' basement and we become self-sustaining, ruchnius organisms. It's not by coincidence that we celebrate the 15th day of Shvat. Something big's happening, and a big lesson is being taught at the University of Trees. A holiday. It's packed. We omit tachanun. It's a moed. If you're Sephardi, you're going to have to make sure to sit down and have a great big bowl of the delicious ashur, some sort of cocoa dessert made of grains and dried fruit to celebrate the holiday. Or maybe you're going to sit down and have a full Seder with 4 cups of wine. But either way, we soak up the nutrients. We enjoy all the inspiration. But we take our first steps as our own tall, towering California redwoods. So my Tu B'Shvat, what is this day? It's a day of independence. It's a day, a holiday. We learn that we are for ourselves. That Mili, who's for me? I'm for me. And even if I'm alone by myself, I'm able to recreate the inspiration, re-energize, and galvanize myself like a tall, towering California redwood.